What is up, Zen in 10? Welcome to the last week of our competition and the final countdown. I wanted to give you guys all just kind of a quick congratulations to making it to this point. Hopefully, given the video series, some of the live demonstrations, everything that we've gone over, you guys have taken some kind of good tools that you can carry with you to improve your overall health and wellness. By this time, I'm sure a lot of you will be viewing this video over Memorial Day weekend. So once again, hopefully you guys are able to take some time during this weekend to really kind of rest, recover, spend some time with loved ones, and feel nice and refreshed coming back to work next Tuesday. So for today's video, we are going to be doing a little bit more of I would say, kind of like an academic or learning type of video. So feel free to watch this in whatever setting is comfortable for you. No need to get up and move. One thing that I kind of wanted to go over in this video is kind of how do we improve the way that we feel our muscles engaging and moving throughout certain exercises. The exercises that I've kind of highlighted for this video are exercises that I personally, in my coaching experience, have seen a lot of mistakes occur. They're also movements that we tend to perform, in various situations in our everyday life. So the 5 movements that we're going to cover today, again, these are movements that have common mistakes that happen with them, and hopefully some of the cues and instruction that I give you today can improve the way that you move throughout these exercises. So let's go ahead and get right into it. I'm doing today all in one take, so no fancy transitions or anything like that. If I stumble on my words, you all have to live with it. So I can't edit out the mistakes today. So again, hopefully you enjoy and learn something that we cover today. So starting off with this, I have my fancy PVC pipe here, one of my favorite coaching tools. The first exercise that I want to go over to is the squat. So if I'm using my PVC pipe and simulating a barbell, and I'm going to do my barbell back squat, or however you perform your squats, it might be body weight, might be goblet squat. However, I'm going to simulate performing a barbell back squat. As we hit our back squat, as I'm sure I've mentioned some of the previous videos, we want to start off with a nice base, whether that's shoulder width directly under the hips, slightly outside, externally rotated, whatever's comfortable for you. As we sit into our squat, we want to make sure that we hit depth in our squat, getting those femurs relatively parallel to the ground, or whatever depth is comfortable for you, and we perform our squat. So getting into the mind muscle connection side of things, one common fault that we see in the back squat is going to be what's referred to as knee valgus. And so knee valgus is that kind of caving in that tends to happen with our knees. And where that happens is when I'm down at the bottom of my squat and I start to drive up, the weakness in my external glutes tends to fail and our knees come in. So what I want to focus on today in order to improve this is a cue that I like to give on how to activate those external rotators within our hip. So the cue that I tend to give is going to be pretend that I am squatting on a towel, right? So I'm standing on my towel right here. As I perform my squat, I want to pretend like I'm trying to pull that towel apart. And in doing so, I'm going to now engage these external rotators in my hip, keep those knees out wide, and perform my squat the way it should be. So without those external rotators engaging, sometimes those knees tend to come in, external rotators engaged, knees stay where they need to be. So again, our cue on our squat in order to really feel this the way that we should is going to be standing on a towel or even a piece of paper, pull that towel apart, squat down to depth, and then back up. So that is going to be the cue that I want you guys to focus on next time you're performing barbell, goblet, bodyweight squat, whatever you tend to perform most within your everyday workouts. The next movement that I want to focus on is really generically speaking our hinge pattern, but can be performed as a deadlift, an RDL, a good morning, lots of different ways that we can perform our hinge pattern. So to perform our hinge pattern or our RDL, we stand nice and tall, hips go back, and then I stand up nice and tall. The common fault that we tend to see with this, which is kind of difficult to see from the external coach's eye, is a lot of low back engagement. When we hit into our hinge pattern right here, the goal is going to be to drive those glutes forward, engaging right here in these big muscles that we have back there, instead of pulling with my low back. When I initiate that pull with my low back, that is where I start to experience some of that tightness or pain. So with our hinge pattern, we push those hips back. A cue that I like to give with this is if I'm carrying groceries or I have something in my hands and I need to push a door open, I push the door open with my hips going back. So kind of think about that as you initiate your hinge. Hips go back, like we're pushing the door open, and then I engage the glutes to push the hips forward rather than using my low back to pull the chest up. So that is going to be our cue for our hinge pattern. Again, whether that's a deadlift and I'm pulling here from the floor, driving the hips forward, or if I'm just RDLing from there. We've all heard the phrase, lift with your legs, not with your back. So let's make sure that we're using those strong glute muscles and not the relatively weak low back spinal erectors. All right. Next exercise is going to be our row. So with our row, we kind of address the same movement pattern in our hinge. So hips go back. I want to row to where my chest is relatively parallel to the ground. So we don't want to row from right here. We want to row from about, hips go back. I tend to prefer the chest being relatively parallel to the ground, but here is where we're going to row from. From our row position, I want to pull that bar to the base of my ribs, driving my elbow straight back and pinching my shoulder blades together. What we don't want is rounding in the back and pulling like this. We want to be nice, strong back, hinge at the waist, pull to the ribs, and drive those elbows straight back. The cue that I like to give on this one is in order to create that nice flat back and that engaged posterior chain, I want to be right here. Now imagine someone threw an ice cold bucket of water on your back and everything tensed up. It would be pretty hard to get splashed with a bucket of ice cold water like this, right? We're going to kind of like tense up as that water hits the back. So water hits the back, everything's tense, drive those elbows back, squeeze the shoulder blades, and then lower the bar back down. Remember, we don't want to row with our rounded back position right here. Last one, I'm going to kind of combine two movements together, both our chest press and our shoulder press. The mistake that we tend to see actually kind of creates the same problem in both movements. And what that problem is going to be, for those of us who are familiar with the shoulder joint, it's a ball and socket that rotates within that pocket joint of the shoulder. And so with our pressing motions, I did address this in a previous video where we talked about elbow position being low in a push-up. I want to think of the same thing as I want to think of the same thing if I'm doing dumbbell bench press or barbell bench press where I have the bar. I want to try and keep those elbows in nice and close. Doesn't have to be tight, but about that 45-degree angle. As I press with my dumbbells or barbell, I want to make sure that that shoulder joint stays nice and happy, and I'm not creating an impingement and rubbing against the labrum within my shoulder, which tends to be what happens when we press like this. So it's by simply pulling the elbows in, pressing this way is how we want to keep that shoulder happy. Likewise, and I'll kneel down to demonstrate this one, with our shoulder press. We don't want to initiate our press from elbows directly out to the side. We want to come relatively neutral, if not all the way neutral, elbows pointed in front. Press up, feels much better on that shoulder joint rather than being out wide and grinding kind of on that labrum. We want to be, again, kind of like a 45-degree in front or elbows truly neutral, and just make sure that we are focusing on the overall health of that shoulder and not getting too much into that labrum. As always, feel free to ask Mariah or I if you have any questions regarding these movements, these cues, how these movements should be performed. And with that, I don't want to run too long on your holiday weekend, but again, be safe, enjoy the weekend. Final week of Zen in 10 is coming up, and we will see you guys next week.